Hello, everyone. Today, we have a special episode of our podcast, which was actually recorded in Atlantic City a few weeks ago during our company offsite in front of over 100 folks from the Simon Data team. We had the pleasure of having Snowflake on site, and Tom Molloy, who was one of Snowflake's first go-to-market employees, sat down with me for a fireside chat. On this podcast, we spent a lot of time talking about how data can be used to affect the next generation of data-driven customer experiences and marketing outcomes. Yet all this is predicated on the breadth and quality of the data that you have. And today, there's no better tech in the market to make this happen than Snowflake. Tom joined Snowflake 8 years ago when the business was a total of 25 people. And today, Snowflake has over 4,000 employees worldwide. Tom serves as a Snowflake evangelist, and today you'll hear our conversation that focuses on not just the future of Snowflake, but on the future potential of data more broadly. Tom, it's great to have you here today. At our first offsite in I guess it would be 9 quarters. Our last offsite was January in New York, and it's actually probably our first offsite out of the city in probably 4 years. It's been quite some time. I think our last offsite out of the city, Chet, I don't know if Chet is still here this morning. There's Chet right in front of me, of course. We went to Montreal. I don't know who else is there. Obviously not. But that was back in the day. But it's really great to have everyone here and really to have Snowflake in. I know we all had a good time last night at the craps table.
Good God.
And so to kick things off, Tom and I were talking last week about his experience, and before I sort of go too deep into that, Tom has been at Snowflake for 8 years.
8 years.
So maybe you can just introduce yourself, what you're doing now, a bit about your background, and just sort of do those, start off with that.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Tom. Thank you for letting me come here, hang out, and giving me a microphone. And it was a pleasure playing craps with all of you last night. I was one of the ones who lost money though, so we don't want to talk anymore about the craps from last night. But yeah, no, I'm very fortunate. I've been at Snowflake for 8 years. I was the 25th employee. When I first joined, there was no website. We didn't have a CEO. Mike Spicer was still doing interviews, and I didn't really know what was going on. I had sold data modeling technology before, but they were trying to articulate why this architecture was going to change the game. And I'm like, all right, you guys seem smart. Maybe I'll come on board. So from there, I built out with Chris Degnan our first beta program. So I was responsible for Maine to Florida and out to Texas. And our primary objective was like, hey, will you please put your data in Snowflake and utilize us and give us feedback? So we did that for a while. And then from there, it's just exploded, right? So I had to build out our first inside sales outbound organization. So I hired 15 people. I had to train all of them. Eventually, I moved into the field. So I moved to New York, and I had media and entertainment from Connecticut down to Philadelphia. So all of media and entertainment, which was a lot of fun and a great industry to be in. I had a lot of experience with like, hey, what do we know about our consumers? How are they interacting with content? How can we utilize this to, enable marketers to create and activate against, different audience segments? And how do we monetize all this? And Snowflake was kind of at the center of that journey. And so when I learned about what Simon Data is doing, I was like, okay, this is cool stuff. Like, you guys are really doing some cool stuff. But yeah, then it just kind of got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller as we scaled until I had just one account. And it wasn't even all Comcast. It was just like NBC. Peacock was managed by somebody else. And Chris Degnan approached me and said, hey, you know what? Like, you've had a great run. Why don't we move you into more of a strategy? Talk about how these applications are built on Snowflake, and come hang out with you folks and drink beer and play craps, and then have these conversations. And so I took that role 3 months ago, and this is my first time.
Wow.
So thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
With the new pastel shirt.
And I got the pastel shirt. So I moved to Florida. There's this long running joke that like, you move to Florida, they take all of your other clothes, you get like pastel polos and flip flops, and that's like all you're allowed to wear. So I made sure it was rocking the Florida attire.
We'll make sure to set up the social media assets so everyone who's listening can see the pinkness. I'm wearing a relatively boring blue-gray shirt today.
Yeah.
But getting back to where we sort of kick things off, really the big question we're going to be talking about today, in this conversation is really just the evolution of data.
Yeah.
And where did it come from? Where is it going? And really, what is the future of data as the backbone of today's modern organization and modern enterprise? And hearing your story is really, is really a throwback to me and to Matt, when we sort of first, decided on some of the technology principles of what we're doing. I'll admit, our first data warehouse, technology choice in 2015 was actually not Snowflake. We actually weren't really very familiar with Snowflake. It was an up and comer, but we knew that the cloud data warehouse, there's something going on there. And we always looked at this technology that we'd chosen as something which wasn't a great technology, but it was just enabled by the cloud, and it was just disruptive because previously, if you wanted to stand up a data warehouse, you had to sign a 3-year contract with one of the legacy providers. They could virtualize it, but it was a real lift and it was a real commitment and really just antithetical to what the cloud stood for, which was elasticity, availability, and not sort of multi-year contracts. And for us, as going to market, we're trying to stand something up to show proof of concept. Wasn't something we were really going to commit to.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to stand up.
Exactly. And then many customers that you were presumably selling into 2016, 2017, 2018. Our tech team just discovered Snowflake, and they were like, "Hey, this is some pretty cool stuff here. Seems like it's more performant than the other guys.
Yeah.
It definitely seems like it has some cool bells and whistles. We'll try it out." So we just built and built and built. I remember talking with Asher on our team, who's been here forever. And he was just talking about what Snowflake has brought to the table, and among other things, it actually was able to deprecate a lot of the old ETLs and workflows that we had that were custom systems Hadoop based. I think we used a framework called Mr. Job at one point, which now I think is probably mostly deprecated. Although please do not correct me if it's not.
Mr. Job. I love that. That's great.
Or affectionately known as MR Job. We won't say what MR used to stand for.
I love Mr. Job. It's a great name. I'm down.
Exactly. But really, it's been very impactful to business, and I think that's all the technology. The technology is cool. But really, what I think really the focus of today's conversation isn't just the tech; it's what the tech enables.
Yeah,
and what that core infrastructure rather enables, and so maybe from there we can talk about Snowflake's journey. I know when Frank Slootman joined about 2.5 years ago, that was a big moment for the business.
Yep.
We were talking about that last week, so maybe you can sort of just pick up the story from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you touched on something really key there. Is that the technology enables you to do things differently. And so when Snowflake was first founded, Benoit and Terry looked at Cloud Object Store, they looked at S3, and they looked at EC2, and they're like, okay, we can design a new framework that can capitalize on this new technical capability to create a really differentiated solution. And that's how Snowflake came about, is they sat down and they built it from scratch. Whereas that other tool I mentioned, they just took a legacy technology and they put it in the cloud, so it couldn't take advantage of that scalability.
They actually bought one of the losers from the previous generation.
They did.
Enterprise
they did.
Data warehouses.
Traditional shared nothing MPP.
The exit, and then they packaged it, into.
Look at this! It's cloud native. No, it's not. This is a fork of a database from a long time ago. Anyway, but that's what made Snowflake so successful. There was a shift in technology. There was new capabilities that were available. Snowflake picked up on that, capitalized, built an execution framework, and then we brought it to market. We had to iterate on it. It was a new way of doing things, so we had to create different outbound strategies, create different messaging, identify what worked, and you had to iterate on this process because you're changing something, something that's been done before, and it's a new way of going about doing it. And I think you guys are kind of right there as well, right? This ability for Snowflake to remove the friction, to collaborate with data and unlock the value from that data. That's kind of a newer approach. We're just getting into this. And you mentioned Frank, and when Frank came on board, I knew Bob Muglia, who was our old CEO, very well. Like, we went scuba diving. I know his wife. I knew him for years. And when you have a good relationship with the CEO of the company, like, that's nice. You like having a nice relationship. And so when Frank came in, it was like, okay, Bob's gone. All right. And Frank is an intimidating character. Frank is no joke. He does not mess around. You can Google him. He's like the shark of Silicon Valley. So Frank came in, and he had tenacity. And he there's a book called Amp It Up, and that's what he did. He just turned up the intensity of, okay, Snowflake, we're differentiated. How are we going to go to market and really disrupt things? So Snowflake 1.0 was, as Bill was mentioning, this data analytics platform, really scalable, really flexible, but we're focusing in on the tech itself, and we're building a huge customer base by helping organizations modernize their data infrastructure. Snowflake 2.0 was when we realized, hey, to Bill's point earlier, you can distribute data via Snowflake. And so we went to data providers, folks like Nielsen, Comscore, who have their whole business model of helping organizations take data. And so we created this robust marketplace. And which is interesting, during COVID, we had really accurate COVID information about various statistics, and doctors' offices were able. It was crazy to see the value that Snowflake's unlocking by helping organizations get additional data sets into their environment. That was Snowflake 2.0. Snowflake 3.0 is this new focus on applications. And that's really what Frank has been pushing. And it's the next step of what Snowflake can unlock. Because when you remove the friction of letting companies own their first party data asset, and like we'd spent a whole 30 minutes just talking about this shift of why your relationship with your customer is your most valuable asset. There's McDonald's created an app that I use. They give me free cheeseburgers just so they know that I'm the one buying the cheeseburgers, right? I mean, it was traditionally franchised. They didn't know about their consumers, but they're like, we need to know this. Starbucks, the rewards program. It's all about, what do I know of my consumers? How can I leverage that? And so you guys are at the forefront of this new era where it's going to be SaaS, what were traditional SaaS applications being constructed in a way where you own your own data. I can utilize companies like Simon to get additional value from that, but I still own it. And Frank has been like, just pushing it forward, and it's been fun. So it's been intense, but great. I mean, great.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a pretty amazing story. I always forget. I don't know how many people actually know, but the business was founded by 2 Oracle engineers.
Oh yeah. They built like 8i, 9i, 10G, 11G, like the core tenets of Oracle's. And if you guys don't know this, Oracle became a company because of its database. The database was the center. Data has gravity. They created the database, and then all the other crap just revolved around it. So like that was their core moneymaker. And these guys were like, they built that framework. And so they came to Snowflake to rebuild.
And how many people here have seen Oracle's campus? Yeah, and what does it look like?
Oracle databases.
Yeah, so it's literally 5 buildings that are just big, cylinders.
And so it's yacht in the front. They have
so like the days of virtualization hadn't quite entered, and the days of actually installing their technology on top of a hard disk were very much front and center. But it's pretty amazing because when I look at Snowflake strategy, it's really one of building a unified database that has all these rich capabilities. They entered the market, really owning this analytical, cloud enabled, counterpart to the enterprise data warehouse, and then on top of that are continuing to innovate, more broadly. And I think it's from a technical perspective, Snowflake's perspective is look, like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, they all have their proprietary data warehouse technologies. But we see a world, and this is sort of what we went through yesterday at the all hands, where the data warehouse doesn't have to couple, with your compute cloud. In fact, you should live across compute cloud because customers have their data in multiple places. Mm-hmm. Customers won't be running on just Amazon or just Google. And furthermore, we see a technological capability, to actually build a database layer on that is multi-cloud that can query across data that might live in Microsoft and Google simultaneously, and abstract away those kinds of details.
Yep. Seamlessly unify your data regardless of cloud, the vision of Snowflake. Yes.
And when you think about what that enables, well, like for a single org that has a multi-cloud setup, enables that. But it also allows data sharing, because if you have 2 orgs, one's on Google and one's on Amazon, you can share across the 2. And it also, and that's across different different businesses, and that's sort of 2.0. But it also allows Snowflake 3.0, which is companies like Simon Data that are built on Snowflake. We happen to be on Amazon today. But for our customers who are on literally any platform, we can seamlessly integrate with them as well. So it's really transformative. So Tom, maybe we can go back, shifting gears for a second, and just talk about some of the cultural shifts that you sort of seen, over the last 8 years. Maybe a fun story or two just to reflect some of the technological changes, if they do reflect at all.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, listen, so when we first created Snowflake, I mean, I was there when we were doing the beta program. Like, so the culture was a very small company. There was 25 people. We could all go out to sushi, like in downtown San Mateo, and all of us just go. Everybody knew each other's names, families. I know Benoit's wife, his kids. We go skiing together. It was a little family. And people make all these like memes and jokes about, your company shouldn't be your family, and you got to separate your work thing. And yeah, that's mostly true. I think for like, especially with larger organizations, but Snowflake early on, like we were all like really good friends. In fact, I once brought like some kittens to the office, and Vadim adopted them like on the spot. Like, it was fun. It was exciting, and we kind of knew that we were doing something transformative. And organizations scale, and we used to be able to say hello to everybody. I knew everyone in their name, and then I kind of slowly got less, and then less, and then less, and then and we became Snowflake, right? I mean, I used to have like all the Snowflake gear. Marcin, one of our founders, he like invented the vectorization of database query execution. He created VectorWise, like the fastest single node database out there. You can Google him. He's like super, super smart. He was obsessed with making like the best swag. This was like his personal mission in life, was like Snowflake is going to have the best swag. So I had all of this like Snowflake gear. And we found the name Snowflake. So yeah, I mean, the culture has been, it still is great, you know, in the pocket that I have, you know, we're doing really, really cool stuff. And the kind of conversations that I'm having now are just, it's incredible to be, you know, be part of this, because it was just before it was like, all right, what are your data sources? How much data is there? This is how your infrastructure is going to be different. So now it's like, we're going to transform how businesses utilize their data to engage with their customer base. And it's going to have that much of an impact on the market. And so it's just, it's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. And I think you guys are going to do that too. I mean, I fully believe that the way you're embracing, like in using, hey, you own your first party data. We're going to unlock the value. We're going to make it frictionless. You can engage with it. You can bring it back in. That is transformative. It's very cool. And I'm like, Dylan and I are going to do some like sales overlap stuff because there's media companies that need your shit. So, but anyway, really excited about what you guys are going to be doing.
Got it. Well, with that, Tom, you know, one thing we were talking about yesterday, and then we'll sort of wrap, was really gets this notion of a next, you know, tier of SaaS. You know, today, so much of SaaS is built on top of low-level APIs. You know, really at the lowest level of the internet, you know, tier that exists. You know, really our perspective around what we're doing, and we see obviously folks in adjacent categories, whether they're doing pricing optimization or you know, supply chain, you know, analyses and you know, and operational applications. You know, you're really thinking about data, you know, as the base of the SaaS application tier, and removing all the details around integration, removing all the barriers to data representation, removing all the you know, the implications around actually making the system operational, and then building an ecosystem where it all works in a unified fashion. You know, that, you know, very much is our vision. And you know, I'm tremendously excited about the problem we're solving, because, you know, the scope is huge, and for our joint customers, arguably, you know, customer data and these marketing applications and customer experiences are the most impactful data problems they can solve as a business. You know, obviously for other sectors and for folks who are not direct to consumer, there's another sort of whole world of applications that we were expecting to co-evolve as well. You know, but we're really tremendously excited about the potential. You know, I know the rest of today, we'll be, you know, breaking off into groups and learning a whole much more.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Lots of fun things that are happening. I mean, there are a couple investors. What was his name? The VC that were.
Oh, Tom is from Redpoint.
From Redpoint, yeah. I mean, he made.
Oh,
this.
No, sorry. From that would be the guy in Greece, Martin Casado.
Martin Casado. He did this great talk about like, they're like, okay, what's your next $100 billion bet? And he's like, it's going to be the evolution of traditional SaaS applications to be built on top of these data layers. So no longer will Workday be able to dictate that. No, you give me all your human resource data, and then I'll tell you what you're allowed to do it. Or you give me all of your data, and then I'll like give you some back in ways that I choose. It's going to be, no, we're going to be recreating these SaaS huge, massive companies in ways that are constructed on top of people owning their first party data, because that's like the really critical asset, and for regulatory reasons, you're going to be sharing that. So anyway, but like that shift in the market is going to be substantial. It's going to be huge. And yeah, it's going to be awesome. Yeah, I just had a quick story that I wanted to tell. Yeah. So our very first paying customer was a company called White Ops. They're called Human now. It's all about like bot detection for marketing campaigns. And I had actually sent Chris Degnan on like one of his first trips to New York. And I was like, I had to book out his calendar for people that I met with that might be interested to talk about, you know, and participate in our beta. And Degnan got lost. And he's like trying to call these people. He's wandering around the whole building. It was like a disaster of a meeting. I was very scared, but they turned out to be our first paying customer. And at that point, we didn't even know how to price Snowflake. Like there was no like this concept of a credit and how should we store for data. It was like totally a black box, but we knew we wanted to have a paying customer because we were looking for money and we needed paying customers. So we're like, whatever you want, 10 grand, unlimited Snowflake, unlimited. We really quickly. Absolutely not. Absolutely. And we realized that, oh, they can just turn warehouses on and leave them on indefinitely. And like they will never be an all you can eat Snowflake model. And it transitioned to like, hey, inventing a 10 grand, boom. But yeah, this whole new model of consumption.
And that includes Snowflake data sharing out to all their partners.
Yes. Yeah, they're a big one. All right. You can't get that deal. Shouldn't have said that. But yes, okay. That was it was a lot of fun.
Great.
Really
well,
great.
It doesn't sound too dissimilar from some of our early deals. Maybe not quite that
Yeah.
generous, but certainly the randomness of where the number comes from
Take this off.
is not foreign to us. Well, anyway, Tom, thank you for coming, and thank you for the entire Snowflake team. We'll wrap with this.
And there we have it. Reflecting on my conversation with Tom, the cloud data warehouse today is quickly emerging as the center of the data universe. And with Snowflake leading the way, we're really at an inflection point that we've never seen before. I've spent my entire career working with data, and we're going to see massive disruption in the coming years in how data is used both to automate and to optimize core business processes. On this podcast and at Simon Data, we're focused on core marketing applications, but the opportunities that we discussed in my Fireside chat today with Tom really are much farther reaching than that. It's really tremendously exciting times ahead. So for anyone who tuned in today and wants to learn more about Snowflake, you can go to snowflake.com. And really for everyone else, thank you for tuning into this special episode of the Data Unlocked podcast. And if you'd like to learn more about Simon Data, visit us on the web at simondata.com or email us at hello@simondata.